Hey guys, Ben Pakulski coming at you from the Mi40 gym. Today's video is going to be on the keys to weak body part development. And I know I give you guys tips and tricks and things like that, but today I want to give you guys a thought process because I want each of you to think about what weak body parts really are and why they happen. So your body has a natural tendency to put tension through muscles and not through other muscles. That's genetics, right? What is genetics? It's the body's natural tendency to dump a bunch of load through certain muscles and not through others based on the lengths of certain levers, the orientation of your pelvis, the orientation of your spine, maybe even the orientation of your shoulders. So your body has a natural tendency to use certain body parts more than others. Logical. It's important to realize also that if you can build one body part, you can build them all because you have the same muscle fiber composition through your entire body, you have the same hormone profile, you have the same DNA. So if you have one massively weak body part, it's just because you're doing something wrong. Maybe there's an injury, maybe there's some type of inability to maintain tension or maintain force. But without those considerations, to build a weak body part is not that complicated, and most people just don't take time to think about it. So here's what you got to do. Most people are getting a tendency of doing the same thing over and over again. They find what they're good at, and they want to do more of it. If you're really good at one exercise, you do more and more and more of it. That may not be your greatest approach. It may be a good idea to do the greatest amount of work with what you're good at, but neglecting what you're weak at is going to be your Achilles heel. So determine what you're not good at for a specific body part. So find where things start to break down. Is it, do you have a really good ability to create tension and maintain tension in that muscle? For most of you, the answer is no. So if you have a weak body part, if you can't squeeze that muscle with aggressive intensity through its entire contractile range, chances of building that muscle are very, very limited. So for me, I'm known as a leg guy. I can contract my legs at 100% intensity through the entire range and never let it go. That's difficult. That's taken 15 years to be able to do, and 15 years of meticulous attention to detail. So that's why my legs develop the way they do. That's why I can train them less often, less volume, less intensity, and still maintain that degree of hypertrophy. Because now, every time I contract the muscle once, I'm doing the amount of work that you're doing over 10 reps. And that's an earned characteristic, right? I didn't just get that. My dad didn't give that to me with his amazing quad development. My dad doesn't have amazing quad development. I've been doing this stuff since I was 15 years old. So learning how to develop the ability to contract is your first and most important consideration with weak body part development. So reverting back to the video I did on 6 essentials, go through those, because without knocking out every one of those 6 essentials, your ability to contract and maintain tension is not there. So let's learn that first. So everyone says, well, I need to use more weight. Listen, you're going to earn your right to use more weight by learning how to contract harder. If you can't pick up a 5-pound dumbbell and create a tremendous amount of tension in any one of your muscles, your ability to grow with a heavier weight is basically zero. If I can't contract a weight or a muscle with zero weight, what makes me think I can contract it when I put a big weight in my hand, right? When I put a big load in my hand. If you can contract a muscle with no load and I put a weight in your hand, guaranteed now that your ability to contract that muscle is less. Guaranteed, because your brain stops thinking about contracting that muscle and your brain starts thinking about that implement in my hand. So each of you needs to become really, really efficient at contracting the muscle through its entire range with no load first. And then let's add a little itty bitty amount of weight and make sure I can still maintain that amount of tension and then progress. Trust me, you'll progress really, really quickly. But you gotta do those things first, because if you can't contract with no load, if you can't contract in a pose, your ability to contract it with the load is zero, because your body's gonna go, well, I can't contract this with no load. I might as well put all this load and all this tension that I now have going through my hand and all these other muscles that I know I can contract. Okay, so that's really, really important thought process. What is my weakest link? And for each of you, I guarantee it's your ability to contract and maintain tension. From there, the next argument is, well, volume versus frequency. How much volume do I need versus how much frequency do I need? And remember what I just said about volume. I have the ability now to bring my volume way down because I contract so much muscle fiber each time I contract. So my volume can be tremendously low and I still build a bunch of muscle, which means I don't have to train things as often. I don't have to train as much volume, and I still get a tremendous amount of work. Whereas you guys at home, when you contract the muscle, the amount of work is very, very small. So I suggest you increase the amount of frequency, lower amounts of volume, higher amounts of frequency. It's something called the repeated bout effect, whereby if you take, say you would do 20 sets normally for quads, and you take that 20 sets and you divide it over 3 workouts, maybe on every other day, you actually get a greater amount of hypertrophy, a greater amount of stimulus, because you're spending a greater amount of time closer to your maximum effort, closer to your maximum exertion, your maximum ability to contract muscle. You know, by the end of that 16 to 20 sets, your ability to contract is going to be crappy for most people. So we want to spend the greatest amount of time, especially for those learning muscular contraction, fresh. We want to spend as much time as we can when our brain can still contract well, our muscles still contract well, we have lots of glucose, we have lots of energy. Our nervous system's ability to contract is peaked early in the workouts. As we fatigue, our ability to contract is minimal. So be very considerate of that. Don't do too much volume. Don't think, well, I didn't feel this exercise really well, let's do another exercise in 10 other sets. Once you stop feeling a muscle, for you beginners, stop. Move on to a different body part. Or a different exercise or something. You've lost your nervous system's ability to contract it. So for weak body part development, for people who are new, I highly suggest learn how to create tension and maintain tension, increase your frequency, and then realization that volume and frequency are inversely proportional. So if you're doing a ton of volume, you need to do less frequency. If you're doing a ton of frequency, you do less volume. So be very, very considerate of that, and your ability to build muscles, especially weak body parts, is going to progress very, very quickly.